Well, we're joined now by Mica Mosbacher, a member of the Trump 2020 Advisory Committee, Capri, Cafaro, a former Democratic member of the Ohio Senate, and in a second, Ron Christie is going to appear from nowhere, the former Special Assistant to President George W. Bush, and he'll jump in and join us too. But I'm going to start with you, Capri, Cafaro. There was a voice in my piece that said the biggest mistake Democrats can make is to underestimate Trump, to think he's stupid, that there is a strategy to what he's doing in his language, and it's very exact. Do you buy that?
Partially. I mean, I do think that most importantly, Democrats cannot take Donald Trump for granted, and here's why. I think that we underestimated the power of Donald Trump and his ability to connect particularly with middle America, the non-college educated white voter that had been voting Democrat for decades, motivated by things like trade and to an extent national security and immigration. And he was able to go out there and be plain spoken, did not talk down to the people that I represented. And I think that connected, and all the polls were wrong. And Donald Trump won.
Mica, plain spoken is a very interesting use of language, because you'll know today that there is a campaign advertisement. We showed a little bit of it. CNN has banned it. Facebook has banned it for racism. And the language he's used about black candidates on the campaign has been, with a hint, but a very clear hint of racism. Does that embarrass you?
No, not at all, because that is part of the Dem strategy, is to play identity politics. And he's been called a racist even by Michael Cohen, who is his former lawyer. However, Pastor Darrell Scott traveled with President Trump all over the United States during 2016 and never heard him make one racist comment.
When he keeps pulling up, though, black governor candidates and saying they're not qualified, they're not up to the job, we know what he means by that.
Well, I think, first of all, we have to look at the fact that his approval rating among blacks is 41%. That's huge.
I thought that poll was way off. That was a Fox poll that was discredited, wasn't it?
Oh, well, you know, I don't believe in a lot of polls, but it hasn't been discredited because you have a number of blacks who have actually left the party of Obama, including who I just mentioned, Pastor Darrell Scott, who are supporting Trump. He called President Trump the most pro-black president.
Darrell Scott's from Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, I know Darrell Scott as well, and I think that there are some individuals that African Americans that are trying to, get on board with President Trump because he was just, he was different, and there are a lot of people that got on board with President Trump because they thought he was just going to upend the system, and he certainly has done just that.
I want to ask you about Ohio, because that's where you have served, and Ohio was one of those places where the blue-collar workers all went for Trump. Are they still with him? Will they come out tomorrow?
The Trump voter in Ohio, and I think by and large across the Midwest, is actually still with Donald Trump. But Trump's message saying "pretend I'm on the ballot" is not necessarily going to resonate and get those people to the polls. Historically, there's lower turnout in midterm elections versus general elections when the president is on the ballot, for example, every 4 years rather than every 2 years here in the United States. But we are actually seeing a higher performance, for example, in places where you can early vote. There's a lot of states where you can get in there early and vote. That is way higher than it was 4 years ago.
Just hold it there for 1 second, because we're going to come back to the campaign in a second. First, a few key things you might have to know about the numbers involved tomorrow. All 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for election. At present, Republicans hold the House with 236 seats to the Democrats' 193. Democrats would have to win at least 23 more seats to take control of the House for the next 2 years. In the Senate, 35 of 100 seats are at stake. Just 2 seats would give the Democrats control, but even holding on to their 2016 gains may prove difficult, as they're on Mr. Trump's turf. Recent history shows that the incumbent president is expected to get a drubbing. Barack Obama lost 69 seats in all in his first midterm, and in 1994, Bill Clinton lost 60 seats across both houses. Right, we've all had to budge up a bit. Ron has, with a clattering of doors, come and join us. Very nice to see you, Ron Christie. We're talking about numbers then. What are the numbers that would spell success for the Republicans tomorrow and success for the Democrats? How will they play at each side?
Well, good evening to you, Emily. I think success is defined at 23. You need 23 seats to take control of the House of Representatives, given the current composition. So if Republicans are able to hold their losses, to mitigate their losses to less than 23, great night for them. For the Democrats, if they're able to pick up 23, 25, 30 seats, great night for the Democrats in the House of Representatives.
Do you think the way Donald Trump has been running this campaign, he has now discounted the House? He said, I already know I've lost it. I'm just going after the Senate. That's why he's playing to his base. He's playing in the red states. He's trying to secure the Senate because he knows the House is gone.
I don't think so. I think that there are a lot of suburban Republican districts where it wouldn't be helpful to have the president go in their district. Whereas if you're going to Montana, if you're going to Nevada, if you're going to some of these states where he's very popular, I think the president's deploying himself in the way that he sees best to help some of these senatorial candidates.
So interestingly, the suburban women in particular is a very curious dynamic, because there are women who you think like the policies but don't like the man. Will they go for him anyway? Because the Democrats are depending on the college-educated, the affluent women to come out for them.
Well, it didn't happen in 2016, and I think that was part of the problem. They banked on the white college-educated woman to go out in 2016, vote for Hillary Clinton, and it didn't work.
Absolutely. And Trump tapped into collective anger in this country. So he actually threw a hand grenade in establishment politics, and that appealed to many women, independents as well as walkaway Democrats. So interestingly enough, while women don't necessarily agree 100% with everything he says, they do agree with the fact that the economy is better. 2.7% unemployment, 4.0% economic growth, and middle America cares about feeding their families and border security.
Okay, but here's the question. When people are happy, they stay home. Right? So he can't have happy people, otherwise no one votes.
But that's why he's done almost 40 rallies. He's campaigned far more than any other president in the 30 years that I've been in politics. I've never seen anything like this midterm. It's almost as much enthusiasm as the presidential election.
Ron, there are Republicans, let's say conservatives like Paul Ryan, who desperately want to see Donald Trump talking about the economy, talking about his record, talking about the things he's done well, instead of scaring people by pretending that George Soros has paid for a caravan. Right?
I think that's absolutely right. And certainly when you look at 3.7% unemployment, you have the lowest African-American unemployment in the country, Hispanic Americans. There's so many positive things to run on. And as Republicans, I think that we have not done a good enough job, in my view, of taking the case to the American people and saying, this is what we promised 2 years ago. This is what we've delivered. This is what we're going to continue to do. And the question, as you said, it's going to be turnout.
Well, and to that point, I was going to bring up the Republican National Committee has raised a record $269 million. And for the first time ever, they've had a ground game in battleground states for 2 years. So that's also a factor.
And turnout is important, and I would say that Democrats are equitably as competitive there, not just with ground game, but with targeting the appropriate turnout.
Let me just ask you to look back at the words of Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, who fell into this trap, didn't he? He said, when they go low, we kick them, right? And everyone in the room cheered, and then they kind of went, oh no, wait, we're Democrats, we don't go low.
Well, and look, and that backfired on Democrats as well, because I think people really did not want us to go into the gutter along with President Trump. There is a significant realignment happening in both parties with progressives and with these new Trump Republicans.
Thank you all very much indeed.